So welcome. I'm absolutely delighted to have with me Rabbi Mordechai Rose from Hendon,
Edgware.
from Edgware in London. He's visiting us in the Alshech, and I'm delighted that he's come because he is the translator of this beautiful version of the Alshech
Together
Torah,
with Rabbi Spur.
together with Rabbi Spur. And it's an absolute pleasure to have you here with us in the Alshech Shul. How was praying? Is this the first time you've been in the Alshech Shul?
Yeah.
How was that praying here?
Yeah, it was very special. I could feel special Kedusha.
Yeah.
You feel it in all the Tsfat, particularly. I was surprised. In davening, felt a strong feeling of Kedusha. Very special.
Amazing. Tell me, what brought you to translate the Alshech?
Well, the first sefer I translated was actually a sefer of the Ramchal called Das Tabunas, which was published by Feldheim. The person who's David Rose, who's behind the project, he contacted me and asked me if I would do it. And I knew the Alshech a bit, but not so well. I spent a bit of time learning the Alshech more and decided it was a very important thing to do. And so that was about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's been an amazing experience to done Bereishis, done Shemos, and the Alshech is called the Alshech Kodesh, not for without reason. The very fact of learning his Torah and being Osek in it, I think, gives a person kedusha and it's amazing Havana of the deep yesodus of the Torah.
He's one of 5 sages that it's called Kadosh.
Yeah,
Why do you think he actually got that title?
Well, obviously, it's interesting because he got at the same time as the Ariya Kadosh, he got smicha from the Mechaber, the Yosef Karo. I think there's something about the purity and the Shema of his Torah that's for the MS. He brings Divrei Chazal so much into the Psukim that there's a special kedusha, special segula to learn the Alshech Kodesh. I think if you learn it properly, he brings you very deeply into the actual words of the Chumash, which itself gives you a kedusha. In his own life, he was actually the Rosh Beis Din of Tzfat. He took over from the Mechaber from Maran, Rabbi Yosef Karo.
Right.
And he's actually a big posek as well. You'll find the Shach on Yoredea, he often quotes the Tshuvas Alshech. It's not known, his main asek was really as a posek. And the Torah Moshe on Chumash, he gave droshes on Shabbos. That was like his spare time thing that he did for his own image, and he enjoyed very much. But he was a manhig of the Kid of Tzfat, and he was Kodesh also, I think, in his ma'asim and everything he did. And it's a big sadek.
Why do you think it was so important to translate the Alshech? Because I don't think it was such a well-known pirush until recently.
We've had some feedback from people who've said that they've got from this translation, this adaptation of the Alshech into English, what they haven't been able to find anywhere else. A certain depth of a lot of the fundamental principles of Chumash, of the Torah, of Yiddishkeit, especially now in these parshas, this week's parsha Kisisa, parshas of Yisro, etc. Matan Torah explains, very deep principles about Klal Israel, about their kedusha, about the level of nevuah they reached in Har Sinai, and the level they would have reached. Actually, this week's parsha Kisisa, they would have. He says that ultimately the level they reached on Har Sinai wasn't the ultimate level. If they hadn't sinned with Chet Egel and they'd kept their Kedusha another 40 days, which was then they would have reached they would have been masakin the Chet of Adam Rishon completely, and then they sinned. Then they fell back to the level of Adam after the Chet, and we had the Torah. There's so many deep principles you won't find anywhere else, and he also explains a lot of the midrashim of Chazal, so you can understand the words of Chazal, which might sometimes seem, some of the midrashim might seem simple, and he shows the true depth and brings it out and links it all to the psukim in a very unique way. He is very fundamental, I think, generally in the Derek HaPshat. I mean, the Orach Chaim HaKodesh, his Derek is very much based on the Alshech, asking questions and bringing Midrashim, and he sort of followed the Derek of the Alshech, I think.
Give me an idea of what it takes to translate one of his parashas, because in the Hebrew text, one of his parashas could be 100 pages long. How do you go about translating that into English? Because it's not a word-for-word translation, right?
Well, what we try to do is make sure that everything's written exactly as far as with Siyata D'Shema was what the Alshech meant to say. Try not to add anything of our own and just be Yored L'omek of what he was trying to say. But it's various things. It's quite a long perush, and sometimes he'll give 3 different approaches to the same thing. Right. And sometimes he'll have like 25 questions, etc. So a lot of the avoider that we've had to do is to try and take what you might say I think we probably render about 65% of what's there. We actually but we try and cut out things that are not essential to the pshat, which might, for the modern reader, so he might lose the flow of ideas. Yeah. And sometimes where he gives an alternative explanation, we've only chosen one sometimes to might complicate things. And also we tried to clarify. Often, we have to learn it through many times so we get it clear. So I think we make clear the way he answers the questions, because the Alshech poses lots of questions. Sometimes it's not so clear how he answers them.
That's right. I love the fact that you give, this is the answer to question number 6, and this is the answer to question number 7. It really helps the reader to understand where he's coming from.
So it involves the work of learning the Alshech over and over again. And then the second stage is to try and work out what is going to work for today's reader, what they can be tofis, what they can understand, and bring that out and leave out those parts that we can't read, and everything that might mean that the reader would actually lose the essential message of the Alshech. But in trying to be very strict not to in any way, and with Yiras Shamayim, the Shem Shamayim, to only bring as far as we can the true kavanah of the Alshech, and not try and put in anything that is not his Torah. That's what we try to do.
And I noticed that you did some of the Megillot as well before doing the Torah.
Initially
did you start with the Avot?
Well, Alshech on Avot is actually was done with the person who edits, finished off my work. Nachum Sponi did it with somebody called Avi Gold. The first one I contributed to was the Alshech Haggadah. I didn't contribute to Alshech on Avot. Alshech on Yonah again. That was the same as with Chumash that I did together with Nachum Sponi, who edits and finishes off and refines.
But what made you do those before you did the actual Torah?
Well, again, that was really Rabbi David Ray's decision that to do these two. I think perhaps because he wanted a very big project on Chumash. In the English, it's 2 volumes for Bereshit, 2 others for Shmos. Probably very only be 1 volume, but it's a big work that's going to take another 6 or 7 years probably until we finish it. So Hashem, where these were things that were more immediate.
I see.
And the Yonah he did on Yom Kippur because. Various reasons, but it's also very profound parish. It's a short work, but it's again very eye-opening.
So when are we going to have in our hands the book of the Vayikra?
Well, that's what we're working on now. We're just working on Parshas Sa. We finished Parshas Vayikra. It's shorter than Bereshit Shemos, but actually we're trying to render a bit more than because it's a shorter work. So we're probably maybe going to be doing 80% of what's there in the original. And it's actually Sefer Vayikra is quite hard because on the Korbanos it's a different approach. Yes. Although he's got a very interesting Hagdama on the whole Yesod of what the Korbanos, how they worked, and based on Chazal. So within the next 2 years it should be available.
You finished the whole.
Right now on Vayikra. Yeah, on Bereshit we spent. Bereshit and Shmos, each one was about 2.5 years from beginning to end. Probably, yeah, because even once you've finished, you've got at least a 6-month process before it's published and out in the shops. Right. So we have to finish it. We want it to come out in time with the cycle of Torah. We have to allow 6 months from when we finished everything before it's actually in print.
Amazing. Okay, so that's great. And this is a curiosity. Is there a favorite parasha that you have, having read and translated them all? Is there one that really you feel, wow, if you could only read one parasha of the Alshech, this is the one you should read because it will explain to you why he's so good?
In Shmos, I think in Parshas V'Shalach and Parshas Yisro, and also in this week's Parsha, Ki Sisa, there's some of the most fundamental things about who the Jewish nation, who they are, what our role is, what we're here to achieve. I think those parshas, let's say B'Shalach Yisro and Ki Sisa, are very, very fundamental. Also, in Bereshis itself, the first Seder of Bereshis is very, very important as well. With because so Olam, he gives you the idea of proper understanding of Maaseh Bereshis, to understand it on a much deeper level than you might originally think, to give you an inkling of the depth of the Torah. So probably in Bereshis, the first Seder, and in Shmos, the ones we said.
Amazing.
But
I would agree with you. I find them fascinating, these parashas, especially Ki Sisa. I found it really amazing. Let me ask you, if you could meet the Alshech today here, is there one question that you'd ask him that you'd really love to know?
One question, I think it would just be awe-inspiring to meet him and to get his blessings which help to help us in ourselves, rather than just ask for bracha to help us be Kaddish. His Kedusha should be mispashit to us as well, and we should, in these times that are quite difficult to maintain Kedusha, we should use that's what I find, learning the Alshech gives me the strength to in as far as possible in our door to have a kesher to Kedusha. So I think I'll just ask him for a bracha, and perhaps ask him to learn in private some of the deeper sugyas, because the Alshech is known as also, you can see that he was Boki in the Torah of Shimon Bar Yochai, of the Zohar, and the Arizal, but in especially on Chumash, he only is merames at it mostly. A lot of the things he says, if you know the Arizal, it's based on it, but in this parish, he didn't, on Chumash, it's not, the Ikka is not the Fi Nista, it's the Midrashim. So perhaps I would ask, to learn with him, some of the Yesodus of Torah Nista. That's probably what I would ask him.
I'd love to be there when you do it. So I want to thank you so much I know you're rushing off out of Tzfat today. So I want to give you a blessing that really you will be a pioneer in disseminating and bringing out the light of the Torah of the Alshech to the whole world. And may you speedily complete your books. They're available from
Feldheim is the publisher. Most bookshops.
Most bookshops will have it. I wish most of the bookshops that I go to will have it. I'm trying to get them to get. So may you be successful in that, and please come and visit us again in Tzfat, and maybe we can interview you for one of these parashot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you, Rob.